The newest trailer for Fire Emblem Three Hopes renewed excitement for many, whether through the reveal of a completely new avatar who's at odds with Byleth, the return of many characters featuring new designs, the tease of new storylines for each of the three lords, and so on. There's one scene in particular which is making a good chunk of fans very thrilled, and while there's no official word yet as far as who these two dudes fighting are, there are enough visual cues to make people point out two very likely candidates. This quick video will be a crash course into both guys, mainly focusing on the first, and why fans are looking forward to both being in Three Hopes. Holst. Lord Holst is Hilda's older brother, heir to House Goneril, and widely considered in-universe as the strongest general of the Leicester Alliance, thanks to single-handedly protecting Fodlan's throat from multiple Almiran invasions. His reputation is so huge that it played a role into making Hilda who she is, though in practice, Holst's rep comes at a big price. Because Almira is a constant threat to Fodlan 24/7, Holst cannot afford to move from his post at all, even in war, which mostly explains why he goes unseen in Three Houses. And yet, there are other situations involving him where, despite one thinking he should show up, he does not. Like, there are paralogs where the player goes to Fodlan's throat to help repel the latest Almiran invasion, and wouldn't you know, Holst just happened to eat some bad mushrooms before he had to go fight, so to the infirmary he went instead. And in Verdant Wind, the route in which the guy does plot-relevant stuff like becoming friends with Nadir so the latter can help Claude's latest scheme, plus intercepting Nemesis's army for a bit before being forced to retreat due to being wounded enough, he still is never shown in the flesh. Something else worth mentioning is a fan theory that Holst is doing all of this crestless. This again is just a theory, but the fact that Holst, who's like 1,000 times more deserving to be the wielder of the hero's relic Freikugel, and honestly would very much like it if he needs to defend his land against Almira, gives the axe to Hilda, and it does raise questions.
Eventually, he settled for foisting this thing on me. Do you know what it is?
One heck of an axe. He gave it to you?
Yes, it's a magic axe called Freikugel. It's the hero's relic of House Goneril. He said that I should have it, since the crest I bear will allow me to wield it. He was so insistent I eventually relented, but I don't think I can be responsible for something so precious.
Almira sure is lucky that Holst was not able to wield this axe, otherwise I don't think there'd be a conflict at all. Let's go into his support conversations. Holst is mentioned frequently in Hilda's supports, as comparing herself to him comes up often. It's so prominent that you can pull together a lot about Holst just by the detail of these off-screen mentions. There's even a moment in her supports where we get close to basically his own dialogue in the game. Holst has been a warrior all his life. In her support with Balthus, she recollects a moment in their childhood where they were walking in the woods and a horde of monsters appeared. Worried for Hilda, Holst ordered Balthus to run away with her. But when Balthus brought her to safety, he ran back to him and managed to rescue Holst before they both dispatched the beast by both punching it repeatedly. So yeah, that's pretty incredible when you think about it. Two teenagers managed to dispatch at least one demonic beast with wooden swords and then their fists. Afterwards, he requested Balthus that should anything happen to him to look after Hilda. In addition to his duty as a big brother to protect Hilda, he is very overbearing. He constantly writes letters to her during her time at the academy, checking up on her, but also being critical of her lazy attitude.
My big brother liked to tell me how lazy and careless I was. I've gotten scolds aplenty, but compliments I'm not accustomed to. Constantly. Yeah, he must be bored. He's always going on about how worried he is for me. What's worse, if I take too long to reply, he gets more worried and writes more about it.
Write about your life, maybe. You know, stuff like, I got real lazy again today. Or maybe, can you believe I still don't know where they put the water buckets?
Interestingly, she reveals to Lawrence that it was Holst who made her go enroll in the academy in the first place. If it wasn't apparent, Holst and Hilda are complete opposites, and this is the source of contention between the two. Hilda is annoyed at Holst's overbearing nature and criticalness towards her, and Holst is frustrated that she's exceptionally lazy and sets zero expectations for herself. Holst is basically a living legend in the Leicester Alliance. In her support with Byleth, she tells them that Holst is basically perfect, and before Claude showed up, people talked about him being the next leader of the Alliance. Despite their frustration with one another, they do love each other. Holst especially does. Not only clearly in the sense that he'd protect her no matter what, even boys he didn't like. For example, Hilda telling Sylvain that he'd beat the shit out of him if he saw him, but he starts to strongly praise her when her letters written to him start to more vividly tell of her battles, indicating to Holst himself that she's putting in more effort in the war.
That's right. Though part of me thinks it's some stranger imitating my brother's handwriting. He's never given me this much praise. Hilda, you've learnt the value of persistence. You're really maturing, stuff like that. Usually his letters are like, I'm worried about you, and stop being so lazy.
Since I have fought by your side, I can assure you that his praise is genuine and entirely deserved.
I've written about fighting in plenty of letters. Why is he so gushy this time around?
I would venture to guess that your depictions of battle are more passionate than before. It's no surprise that such authenticity would resonate with a veteran warrior like your brother.
Finally, Holst is just a stand-up guy. Despite being mortal enemies with the Elmyrans, he's one of the only people who speaks highly of Cyril, despite his heritage and the conflict between the Alliance and the Elmyrans.
He didn't say anything bad. In fact, well, listen up. Here's what my brother wrote. Be he Elmyran or no, any young man with compassion and good conduct is worthy of respect. Character is what really matters, not the place of one's birth.
Huh, that's pretty nice. Especially since it was from a noble who battles Elmyrans.
Right? He's a funny one, but for the first time, I really respect him. So thoughtful and tolerant.
That letter makes me happy. A lot of people look down on me just 'cause I'm Elmyran. So, it's nice to hear somebody accept me as just another person.
This is actually the closest we ever get to Holst saying anything, and wouldn't you know, it showcases that Holst is a tolerant giga-chad among everything else he also is. There's not much else to say since that's just about the most we hear of Holst in the game. He's Mr. Perfect but just gets sidelined in the main game for various unfortunate reasons. So with all that in mind, it's understandable to see the fanbase go mad by having the Three Hopes trailer tease that at long last we might finally know what Holst looks like. And the same goes for the old-looking guy he's fighting against, Count Bergliez. Count Bergliez is Caspar's dad, and he's not any Empire noble, he's the Minister of Military Affairs, which is a fancy way to say he's in charge of Adrestia's military. He's low-key relevant to the plot, as his secret dealings with Edelgard allow her coup against Duke Aegir to go smoothly in Chapter 11. Though, as far as the fanbase goes, there's a better reason to care about the guy.
It's such a relief that we've made it this far without having to fight my father. You bet I'm scared. The Imperial Army hasn't lost a single battle with my father on the field. If he turns up as a reinforcement during the assault, we might lose. I'd better make my peace with that.
Caspar's fears aren't unfounded either. In the game's backstory, in 1175, Count Bergliez's forces put a swift end to the invasion both Dagda and Brigid attempted on the Empire, even getting the chance to kill the king of Brigid, Petra's father, himself. Also, he is never actually defeated in the main story, and when he surrenders outside of Crimson Flower, it's only because the Empire is pretty much done for after Edelgard is killed. And despite all, just like Holst, all the hype surrounding this guy goes unfulfilled as he never ever appears in person. There was a more clear screenshot taken from the trailer that was presented by Nintendo Insider that more easily showed his loincloth. And looking closely, engraved is the crest of Keyhole. This actually has some pretty neat implications. Let's go into a bit of a history refresher. If this is, in fact, Daddy Bergliez, then that would mean that House Bergliez and House Aegir share a common ancestor, the human who was given the crest of the saint Keyhole. and Caspar and Ferdinand would naturally be distant cousins. Crest sharing with the playable cast already exists anyway. Bernadetta has a minor Indec and Hanneman a major, meaning their common ancestor is the human who is given Index blood. You may also notice that this crest sharing is most common with the Empire, and that may be because the Empire is the only faction in Fodlan to have been given the crest of the Saints on purpose. All the Kingdom and Alliance crests were inherited from the 10 elites, who inherited their crests from consuming the blood of the Nabateans' nemesis slain. Evidently, this is also why the Empire has no heroes' relics either, and instead sacred weapons. A caveat to mention in case someone might be confused or misinterpret what I'm trying to say here is that it's not confirmed impossible for this kind of crest relativity to exist for the Kingdom and the Alliance. There's just, for whatever reason, none yet. The closest we get to this is House Daphnel and House Galatea. Ingrid of House Galatea, the house which is an offshoot of Daphnel, is the only one who inherited the crest of Daphnel. Judith, the quote-unquote hero of Daphnel, could have had it, but the story says she does not get to. So big emphasis on yet. It probably is possible, it's just not really a thing for the Kingdom and the Alliance. So yeah, Holst and Count Burgles are big deals in Three Houses, and assuming these two are those two, I'm really curious how they will be characterized in the flesh instead of off-screen. Thank you to everyone for watching this video. This video would not have taken so long to publish, but like I mentioned in my last one, I'm still dealing with the flu. I'm not out of the woods just yet, and I had to cancel like 3 commitments this week, which makes me really sad because there was a Smash tournament I really wanted to go to in the city, and a photo shoot that I had to cancel and reschedule for. It's not great. It's not great. It's not COVID though, but it's not great. But hey, when you work at home, you can't easily call out of work. Thanks to everyone for all your support on the recent Three Houses / Three Hopes videos. If this video showed up in your recommended and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. The channel creeps closer to 94,000 subscribers every day, and it would mean a lot if you could help me get there. Anyways, have a good one. Deuces.